All right, so I did this in the first service, but there was one thing that I forgot. So I thanked my father who was here in the first service. And it was so great to get to preach with my father in the service. And everything that I am today is definitely because of him. So I am so thankful to him, but I'm also thankful to everyone that I have learned from here. So thank you to all the guest speakers that we've had this summer, the summer of guest speakers, to Kendra, to Emma, to everyone who has shared the word. Thank all of you for being such wonderful people of God. So incredibly honored to be a part of that. One person's excited. There we go. So the last time that I wore one of these and preached a sermon was 4 years ago, and that was at Sparks Naz. And now I'm a little bit older. You remember? Well, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and still half black, so we're good. We're all set. But the last time that I actually wore one of these was for our Christmas play. And boy, I have searched everywhere that I possibly can, and I cannot find the footage. All the different cameras that we had, and I have no idea what happened to all that footage. It's gone. So if you weren't there, I'll give you a little bit of a recap. We had an English secret agent who came to visit a Scottish innkeeper who had a very kind and sassy southern daughter. And this was all in Bethlehem. So as you can imagine, it's very historically accurate. I talked to the History Channel about it, and they said no. So if you can remember it, though, hopefully you can recall to everyone else who wasn't there, who missed it, but you'll have to do all the voices. So it'll be like reading a kid a child's story. You know, you just have to do all the voices with it. But the problem with memory is that it's fickle. And it's getting more and more so as we continue to have technology that remembers for us, because now we don't have to do all the remembering ourselves. And it's to a point now where we think about the day when supposedly robots are going to take over. They already have. We're already controlled by these little things. Everything that we do is around our phones. It's around our computers. If you don't have any contact with the machine at all, whether at home or at work, then maybe you can say you're free. But if in some way, shape, or form you are having to use a machine to make your life move forward, you're already a slave to the machines. This is exactly what it looks like. It's just way more boring, so it doesn't sell any tickets in the theaters. But this is what it looks like. And the more and more we depend on devices to remember for us, the more we forget important lessons. I mean, it's one thing if you forget the name of a song that's running through your head, fine. But it's another thing if we're forgetting important morals and lessons that we should be learning from history that we're just leaving off. And one of those is if we take, what I really love to do is take a 100-year period and look at the beginning and the end and see the difference. Between now and 1920, the difference between how we're handling a pandemic is night and day. Back in 1918, the Spanish flu, which wasn't the fault of Spain, they were just the first ones brave enough to talk about it. The Spanish flu, they didn't know what caused it. They thought it was bacteria. They didn't know it was a virus. In fact, they did not even find out what caused the Spanish flu until 1933, after it was over, a decade later. So imagine that today. Imagine if we didn't know what caused COVID-19 and we didn't find out for 10 years. That's a pretty scary event to be in. They had vaccines, none of them worked. They were shooting in the dark. They had no idea why, and the global toll was 50 million people from that virus. By contrast, 100 years later, we not only know what causes COVID-19, but we have over 100 vaccine candidates already in progress. That is a humongous amount of achievement that humans have been able to do. And the other biggest thing, if you were to take a look at 1869 and you were to ask people, or you to tell people and say, hey, in 100 years, we're going to walk on the moon. They would probably drag you behind a horse or something, or I don't know how they punished people back then, but they probably wouldn't believe you. They would probably say if we were meant to be in space, God would have made us born there. It was the same people that would have said that when we invented the planes that said if we were made to fly, God would have given us wings. They didn't agree with that. We had a lot of critics because the idea of human flight was impossible. But today, if someone says, oh yeah, I flew there on my vacation, we don't bat an eye. Of course you flew. That's not a big deal to us anymore. A plane is a plane. We know about astronauts going to space all the time. That doesn't surprise us anymore. But it used to. It used to be amazing. It used to be unheard of. We have gotten to a point where technology controls every aspect of our life. It does. But if you're older than me, and I'm 30, so if you're older than me, then you also have survived during a time when Netflix didn't exist. So which means it's possible. It means you can live without Netflix. You can live without Hulu. You can live without the internet. Because when I was 7, we still had internet on discs. I know some of you can go beyond that, but that's what it was for me. You were buying your 10.99 minutes on a disc. So I have lived without the internet before. It's okay, we can breathe, but it's really hard to. And one of the things that we need to remember is that we are capable of great things, but we're also capable of terrible things. There was one astrophysicist, his name is Carl Sagan, and he was an atheist, and his book, Pale Blue Dot, says as much. But there are also some wonderful things in that book where he was talking so wonderful about his hope for humanity. He had such great hope that we could make better decisions for the future. And he wrote that book in the early 1990s. It's still very true for today. So this is a little excerpt from his book. We were hunters and foragers. The frontier was everywhere. We were bounded only by the earth and the ocean and the sky. The open road still softly calls. Our little terraqueous globe as the madhouse of those 100,000 millions of worlds. We who cannot even put our own planetary home in order, riven with rivalries and hatreds, are we to venture out into space? By the time we are ready to settle even the nearest other planetary systems, we will have changed. The simple passage of so many generations will have changed us. Necessity will have changed us. We are an adaptable species. It will not be we who reach Alpha Centauri and the other nearby stars. It will be a species very like us, but with more of our strengths and fewer of our weaknesses. More confident, far-seeing, capable, and prudent. For all our failings, despite our limitations and fallibilities, we humans are capable of greatness. What new wonders undreamt of in our time will we have wrought in another generation and another? He knew what we could do. He could see what we could do. And if he was alive today and could see, like, that's what this picture is. So when I sent this to Rhiannon and I titled it Sheep Among Wolves, she goes, that's interesting. That's not a sheep or a wolf. And I said, you're right. But that's because my brain doesn't think in a linear way as most people would. Most people would put a sheep and a wolf there. But I thought of this, and this is the picture of the most recent SpaceX launch. It's a long exposure of the launch going up, curving with the atmosphere of the Earth as it was going to meet the ISS. And to me, it made sense because, in a way, we're being launched out into a world full of wolves. And Jesus was preparing his disciples for that. He was preparing his disciples for what they were going to face. We have to face so many wolves in this day, and we have so much. We're really good at anger. We're really, really good at emotion. So listen, I'm 30, so clearly I know everything. One person laughed. One person gets my sense of humor. I don't. One person understands. So look, Methuselah lived 969 years. Even he didn't know everything. So I have zero chance of ever catching up to that guy. So for what I know, what I have seen is this November, half of this country is going to be angry regardless of who gets elected. Doesn't matter. Either way, half of this country is going to be angry. That's not a good thing. You don't want half a country just being angry. I can understand disappointment, but anger? Where is the point of that? What good does that get us? How does that move our country forward? We have done this before. We've done elections before where we just end up with anger on both sides and nothing gets done. We are so good at adapting to good things, but we are so terrible at getting rid of the bad things. The bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were devastating. And thankfully today, we have worse bombs. They've gotten worse. They've gotten stronger. That's not progress. That's Congress. Okay? That's not moving forward. That's moving backwards. We should not be making bombs stronger. Why are we doing that? Obviously, there's a military reason for it, but this is not the solution. This is not how we change humanity. This is not how we make our future greater. This is how we move backwards. We embrace hatred instead of unification. Hatred and anger has nothing to do with what God is trying to do in the church. If you are saying, I don't want to have anything to do with the person on the opposite side of the political spectrum than me, then you are overriding Jesus, who died for them too. He died for the libertarians. He died for the democratic socialists. He died for everyone. He does not care what political party you affiliate with. Jesus loves everyone. So as much as we want God to come back now and we're hoping for Jesus to come back now, we have to remember that if he does, billions of people are not going to get to be with Jesus. We are essentially asking for billions of people to miss out on eternity with God if he comes back in the next 5 minutes. He could. He could come back in the next 5 minutes. He could also come back in the next 1,000 years. We could all have lived out our lives and Jesus could still not have come back. What matters is not when Jesus is coming back. So stop looking for messages in the Bible that A, aren't there, and B, are not important. It's not about when Jesus is coming back. It is the shape of our heart when he does. How have you prepared yourself for when he does come back? How will he find you? Will he find you as a good and faithful servant, or will he find you as someone who is constantly saying, you're not good enough to be in my church because I don't agree with you? I love learning from people who don't agree with me. Because if we can still work together despite our differences, that to me is what proves we have a hope in this church, if not just in humanity in general. This church should be an amazing example of when the media should come in here and be asking us, how is it that all of you can believe so differently and yet still work together? That should amaze the media. They should be asking pastors constantly, how do you make that work? Congress can't figure it out. Capitol Hill can't figure it out. Everyone's just too busy bashing each other on social media, creating posts that only cause more division instead of unification. How is it that this church is doing this? And the answer is because what unites us is stronger than what divides us. It's God. And that is the only way that that happens. Clearly, we can't do it on our own. We get anger. Jesus gets anger. So our first verse we're going to turn to is Matthew. It's in chapter 26, verses 23 and 24. And Jesus is talking, this is the Last Supper, and he's talking about Judas. And he says, Jesus replied, the one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as is written about him. But woe to the man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born. There are two possible ways that Jesus could have said this, because we don't have the inflection given to us in the passage. We just have the words. So it's possible that Jesus said this from a broken heart. It's possible he said this from a point of, it would be better for him if he had not been born. But he could also have said, it would be better if he had never been born. Because if I were to ask all of you if you've been betrayed, I'm sure most of you would raise your hands. And then if I were to ask how many of you enjoyed being betrayed, your hands would probably go down. Because betrayal hurts, and it makes you angry. And Jesus understands anger. And yet another passage that proves that Jesus was angry was the point where he came into the temple and was chasing them out with a whip and calling them thieves. Jesus understands anger to the point where he was talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the teachers of the law, and he told them, you are like whitewashed tombs. You are pretty on the outside, but inside you are full of dead men's bones. Jesus sometimes had to speak the truth, and he had to speak it harshly, because it has had to get through to people that he meant what he said. Jesus gets anger. But if we switch to a moment to go to the Holy Spirit and think about the attributes of the Holy Spirit, and that's in Galatians, and it's not going to be up in the Sky Bible, but it's in Galatians chapter 5, and it's 23 through 24, and it says that for the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, and self-control. Good. You have prizes under your seats. Those of you who got it right, take a look. So self-control is a part of the Holy Spirit. That's what the Holy Spirit produces in us. That's not us. The fruit of the Spirit is not something that we just produce. That's the Holy Spirit living and working through us, producing those attributes. And if you look at the description in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 about love, anger is not a part of love. We can feel angry, and that's okay because God feels angry, and he made anger. So he feels it way more than we ever do. But we're supposed to check our anger through the self-control of the Holy Spirit. There is a proper way to express your anger. And if it is bashing people, if it is name-calling people, if it is causing more issues than it is solving anything, that's a problem. That's not the way to express your anger. There is a much better way to do it. There is a way that we could walk across the street to someone we don't agree with and say, hey, I don't know what you believe, and maybe we don't believe the same thing, but let's work together. Let's make something happen. I don't want to live in this country where we're just going to be angry and crossing our arms at each other. Let's work. Let's make something happen. There is something wrong with a church. If this room, we call it a sanctuary for two reasons. One, it's a churchy term. And two, it's because it's a safety. It means safety, refuge, security. This is a place where you should be able to come and no one is here judging you. No one is here bashing you. No one's here taking you down, taking down your name. Instead, we are all here of different beliefs and backgrounds, and before you write anyone else off for who they voted for or what they believe, remember that you don't know their background and what led them to that decision. You don't know their history and why they vote the way they do. Get to know them first before you judge. Get to know them first before you immediately write them off, because remember again, Jesus did not. Jesus didn't write anyone off, and he never will. He is waiting, and it's why we should be so careful to say, oh, hurry up, Jesus, come back. Because the problem with saying that means that billions of people miss out. This isn't like a game show where we have door number 1 and door number 2, and you don't know which's behind which, and you just got to choose. We know what's behind them. Door number 1 is life with God. Door number 2 is life without. No, it's death without. That's it. Those are the only two options. There's no third middle ground. So there are people already headed for door number 2. And God is saying, please, please don't do that. God is the only one who can balance all powerful and all loving. The only one, because humans can't. If we have all power, we are not all loving. In order for us to love, we have to give up power. In order for us to love, we have to say, you know what, this time it's not about me. Let's do it your way. And in that moment, you're giving up power because you're wanting love to win. That has to happen because we can't balance both. Only God can be all powerful and all loving. And because of that, he is letting us make our choice. Yes, be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell, but we're choosing hell. If you prepare for a life here without God, that is what he will give you there, a life without him. When atheists say they want a world where they could wake up and not have to hear God's name, no religion, no churches, they are asking for hell. That's what they're asking for, because every good thing that you enjoy in this world is from God. Every single one. You take all that away and you are left with the scary nastiness and isolation that is hell. We should not be so excited that we want Jesus to come back. We need to be excited about serving God here and now, because there are billions of people who still need him. We like to think that the mission is done because Jesus said, go into the world and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And we say, well, we've done it. Every single nation has at least one disciple, so we're good. That should not be enough for us. We should be wanting to take as many people away from Satan as possible so he can spend eternity alone. That's what God wants. He doesn't want billions of people to go away from him. He's begging us. But if we continue to choose without him, then that's where they're going to go. They're going to go through door number 2, and there's no coming back. We should be so broken up about that. That should make us sick inside, the idea of Jesus coming back in the next 5 minutes, because there's still way too many people that don't have him. We are like sheep among wolves. And we're going to go to Matthew, and it's in chapter 10, verses 16 through 18. And Jesus is talking to the 12, and he says, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and be flogged in the synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. He warned them, it's going to get hard before it gets better. It's going to get really hard. He also told them in another passage, honestly, don't be surprised when the world hates you because it hated me first. We follow a man, we follow the Son of God who the world hated first. So are we surprised that we're getting persecuted? We shouldn't be. But persecution is an amazing thing for a church. As much as it hurts, it's good, because it takes everyone who's sitting on the fence and everyone who isn't sure and makes them decide. It makes them choose and say, you know what? This is real. These people are doing this, and I'm on board. Clearly, it must be worth it if they're willing to sacrifice public persecution and still follow God. There must be something there. There has to be something that changes within us, that changes us into people who are for God. In every aspect of our lives. We don't need to be going out there and pushing the Bible down people's throats. We might be as innocent as sheep, but we have a roaring lion next to us every step of the way. Not a single wolf can touch us so long as that lion is there. That should be enough for us to keep moving forward and keep making something happen in this world. It's time to stop retreating. We have all these men's, women's, and youth retreats. It's time to start having men's, women's, and youth advances. It's time to stop saying that the gates of hell were never supposed to prevail against the church. That's what Jesus said. The gates of hell will not prevail against my church. So what are we scared of? If we are true people who are living for God in each and every day, that people look at our lives and say, wow, I want that. I don't know what you have, but tell me. Because clearly you have something amazing. You have a God that is living in and through you and changing the way that you interact with everyone else. I see more peace in you than humanly possible. If you were to think of the most peaceful people on earth, you might think of a Tibetan monk as the most peaceful person that you can. That's maybe the most peaceful that you can possibly achieve as a human. But already by having the Holy Spirit living within you, you have more peace than that because you have it to a supernatural degree. We should have more peace than Tibetan monks. We should have more goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and love than anyone else because we have God living in and through us. That's more powerful than anything else in the world. Where is it? It's time to show that as the church. We've seen so many stories about the church not being what it's supposed to be, and we need to change that narrative. Let the media be surprised by a church that is so in love with God that every aspect of who we are as people, by what we say, by what we do, is just awe-inspiring to them, that they don't understand it. Something is wrong when our lives make sense to unbelievers. It shouldn't. If the only difference between us and atheists is that they get to sleep in on Sunday, you're missing the point. When God finally comes back on stage, when Jesus comes back and the whole world knows that turns out he's real after all, that's it. When the author walks on stage, the play ends. And when that happens, there are going to be people who are going to miss out. And we shouldn't want that. We shouldn't want anyone to miss out on who God is and what he is for us. He is begging us. The whole Bible is not a book for us to figure out coded messages that don't exist. The whole Bible is God's love letter to humanity saying, don't you get it? Thousands of years I have been trying to get your attention to show you I care about you and love you. Don't you understand that? I am trying to prevent you from the worst possible fate that you could imagine. I'm doing everything that I can. I've shown you every way that I can. And now we, who don't get to save people, but we are God's hands and feet. We are the ones who are going out into the world and having to do this because there are going to be people that are going to miss out, and that should make us so sad that people are going to miss out. God doesn't want anyone to miss what he has in store for you because it's greater than you can imagine. Heaven is about God. Everything is about God. The whole of creation is about God. Whether you believe that God created the world in a literal 6 days and rested on the seventh, or it's 13.8 billion years as scientists currently estimate, I don't care either way. I can work with you either way because either way, that's amazing to me. If God has been around for 13.8 billion years, that makes me stop in reverence. If he's been around, if he built a universe in a week, that's the most productive week I've ever heard of. I don't think I've ever had a productive week like that. I've never built a universe. He's amazing either way. We can work. We can find differences, but we can still work together regardless of what you believe. There is not science versus God. There's science because of God. It's just explaining what he did. That's all it is. It's not disproving him. It's just showing how he did it. That should make us even more amazed. God's incredibly smart if that's the case. I'm terrible at science. Clearly, God knows what he's doing. This is our chance to reach a world full of lost and broken people with a message that changes lives. But it has to start with each and every one of us in each and every one of our lives and how we act, not just in here, because again, if we are more gerrymandered in here than we are out there, there's an issue. If we've got people who are all clustered together saying, here's what I believe and here's what I believe, and we don't talk to each other, you're missing the point. We should be the example that the world should want to follow. Regardless of who gets elected this November, let's agree to work together. Seriously, not some knife in the back kind of thing like, yeah, I'll work with you, but just wait until I stab you. This is not the time for that anymore. Let's be better than that. We can show people that we're better than that. We can show the world. And outside of politics, goodness, the world has enough negativity as it is. Do we need to add more to it? We need to give people hope, not condemnation. God sent his son into the world to save the world, not condemn it. The Bible is not a way for us to point the finger at people. It's a way for us to point to God and say, come with us. Because if we don't, billions of people that go through door number 2, honestly, it would be better that they had never been born. because then they wouldn't have to experience hell. So pray with me. God, we are so thankful for a country that allows us to meet and worship you as loudly and as boldly as we can. We thank you for every step that you have taken to prove to us that you love us, to prove to us that we matter to you. We want our lives to reflect your boldness, to reflect your love to a world that is so devoid of it. Help us to show to each and every person that we belong to you, that we are not of this world, we are of you. Let us be your children in every moment and every act of our lives, that when people look at us, they see you. They see your character in us. We pray that you don't come too soon because we want to save people. We want you to save people, but we want to get that message to them, that we can bring as many people on board as possible. We've lost enough people already. We all want to come home to you. Amen.